As might have pointed out before, it's exactly like it was at the Gold Coast on the Saturday afternoon. Certainly not cold conditions, but with no wind, it's going to hang for quite some time. Cameron Hill, the Aussie, will start out of pole position for this reverse top 8 race. Jordan Bolden will start alongside him out of position number 2. Chris Quinn and Reed Harker on the second row. Ben McDonald and Tom Alexander missed out on a Formula 5000 run here today, earlier on with that wet weather conditions, to be back out there tomorrow. We'll look out with Dylan Golson, Bramwell King and Sam Wright. Now, we had 2 sessions for qualifying yesterday. One set the grid for race number 1. This is results from race number 1 today with a flip of the top 8. But we had a separate qualifying session. Bramwell King got pole in his very first run in this category, and well done to him.
Yeah, he did a brilliant job, and I quite like the idea of the format where we qualify for race 1 and then race 3 with this mixed up grid for race 2. Definitely spices it up a lot.
Look at Dylan Golson down in the field. One of our regular Australian runners, running his usual number. He runs over in the Australian Championship, which has their series finale on the streets of Newcastle in a few weeks' time. And the difference here we've talked about during qualifying is the tyres. Unlike the Dunlop Duretzes we run in Australia, these guys run on the Hankook tyre.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that Cam Hill mentioned, was very different tyre and very different feeling that you get from the Hankook versus the Dunlop. In fact, I made mention of it earlier, that the lateral grip that the cars are able to produce here in New Zealand versus what we're seeing out of the cars in Australia, very, very different. So, you know, no right or wrong way to go about it, but just a different tyre. It's great to see different tyre manufacturers getting on board. That's a terrific shot there, mate. I think I'm just going to take my foot out of my mouth. I said before that the rain was starting to lighten up, and all of a sudden it's starting to pour down again. It's
absolutely teeming outside of our window. We're pretty much lined up with the front row as the red lights start counting up for race 2 of this year's Toyota 86 New Zealand Championship here in Pukekohe. We're underway with Cameron Hill in the orange and black number 5, starting from pole, but probably not the best side to be on. He's going to drop 2 or 3 positions by the time we get down to this right-hander at turn number 1. And just like in race number 1, there's no holds barred here.
No, 3 wide mid-pack through there. Cam Hill looked like he just stepped off that clutch pedal a little bit too quickly, and his Toyota 86 just broke into wheel spin straight away as soon as that red light went out.
Bring your A game, is all I can say. Much wetter on the back straight. Look at that compared to the formation lap. It's like glass heading down there for the first of 12 laps. Side by side now between the 2 guys that started on the front row. They're back in 4th and 5th as we head down to turn 5 here on lap 1.
Yeah, good move from Cam Hill. Oh, Cam Hill, we just saw him fire off to the right-hand side there. It looks like he's got an issue in that car because it was not stopping.
How quick did he go through that shot? And he didn't get collected by anybody.
We just saw it on the approach to turn 5 where he just fired off to the left-hand side of our shot, and it worried me because that rate that he took off at was just incredible. Very lucky.
Wow. That was incredible. He's dropped back to 5th position, and his heart rate will be punching right through his chest at the moment.
That was a weird moment, mate, because it looked like he'd had a brake pedal failure of some description. He just didn't look like he was stopping at all. So really unsure. I'm not even going to call that one. I don't know. We're going to get a bit of a replay. So if we look at this orange and black car, look, he's just turned hard right and fired off to our left-hand side of the shot. It's almost like the throttle jammed or the brake wasn't on. But
did
look,
he split him?
That was the one there that we are very lucky that he didn't make contact with Alexander and Milligan, because that would have been heavy impact into the driver's side door for those 2 guys.
That was incredible.
Man.
This is watch the left-hand side. You went, the car's going through the shot here. I thought he split between 2nd and 3rd and just pulled the Speedworks entry up in front of the field, and not a mark on the car.
Literally just ran across the bonnet of Alexander and Milligan. More so Alexander, but I bet you that got his attention.
Got our attention too. Incredible scenes on the first lap. This is lap 2. So we head down to the Husqvarna hairpin.
So given that Cam Hill has continued on in this race, I can't help but feel it was a driver-induced error that came from the Hill car in the braking zone at turn 5. Whether or not he's just missed the brake marker completely because he was on that extreme right-hand side of the road, and when he did finally get to the point where he's pushed the pedal, he's jumped on it too hard, and the car has just skidded across the road.
It's amazing.
Man, we're going to have to chalk that one up as lucky.
Yeah, I'm still shaking from it. I wasn't even in the car. This is lap 3. We're on board with Jack Milligan, who's up to 2nd place, and chasing Tom Alexander. There is Cameron Hill on the back of Baldwin, who started from pole position. Keep in mind, we flipped around the first 4 rows for this race. And these wet weather conditions look like setting in once again in race 2 of the Toyota 86 New Zealand Championship. This is the 75th race in their short history, their 5th season of competition. Judging by what we saw in race number 1 and the start of this race, they're in for a great season here in New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these conditions have spiced things up. We just see Milligan there absolutely maximising his car under brakes, the rear wiggling around. A little bit of opposite lock on the power to get out of turn 6 there. He had plenty of space, plenty of pace in today's earlier event to be able to come from P5 all the way up to P1. Started 8th today, so he's made some fair inroads, courtesy of that tardy start from Cameron Hill. But he doesn't seem to be able to run with Alexander here, does he?
No, Alexander, it's less than half a second, but plenty of time to play out in this one. As Jack Milligan, the 21-year-old from Christchurch, does the chasing in the first of the 2 Care Vets entries. This is the scholarship that runs for the Toyota 86 Racing Series. He's got Reed Harker running about a second behind him right now. Then Baldwin and Hill. Bramwell King is now 6, back to Ransley, Golson, Quinn and McDonald, who's just got past Quinn in the background of that shot. If we look at Milligan, hit it nice and sideways across the top of this amazingly and historical track here at Pukekohe. This is what it looked like from on board.
Well, that was a good slide. Just watch the hand movements here. He's just on the throttle, steering left so that he can turn into the slide. Pretty much that's what you want to be doing in one of these cars. Rear-wheel drive, so when the rear steps out like that, turn into the slide to try and catch it. You could hear a little bit of throttle modulation going to just make sure that the car was going the way you wanted it to. And that was brilliantly timed because he literally caught the slide on the edge of that little bit of bitumen that had been extended on the exit of the final corner. It's great to go on board with him.
Absolutely, at the right time, yeah. 1 second now is the margin, first to second, as we look through the field towards the back of the top 10 right now. That's Golson under siege by McDonald at the Husqvarna hairpin and gets past, or will he? He's got better drive out of the Husqvarna hairpin and will power back down the inside and hold that position. Keep in mind, this is 8th and 9th of the circuit as we start lap number 4.
Yeah, a lot more standing water on the inside part of the circuit there, exiting the hairpin. So McDonald just couldn't get that throttle down. Broke into wheel spin just the smallest amount. And that was enough that he couldn't get the pass completed and Golson was able to drive away.
McDonald ran a limited campaign in last year's series, a former Suzuki Swift racer back in 2013. And full-time in this year's series, a 5-round championship that runs right around New Zealand. Back to the 91 of Quinn. He holds down position number 10. It's 1.4 seconds, first to second. As we jump on board with Jack Milligan across that slippery part down into turn number 5.
Hadn't had a race win here previously at Pukekohe until this morning, Jack Milligan. So he's chalked that one up. And let's stay on board with him here. We'll do a lap of Pukekohe in the Toyota 86 in very, very wet conditions out there for these guys. I love these one-mate series. For me, they're where young racers get to tune their craft. It's all about the guy, or the girl for that matter, that gets to sit in the driver's seat. A few little tunables, but you look inside this car here versus, say, the modern-day supercar, very much a standard road car. They do run the Motec system. And that's that little electronic dash that you can see, gear position indicated in the centre. But what I like about it is there's not a lot that you can actually change on these cars. And it's all about the driver working hard to extract the absolute most out of the car around the lap. Conventional H pattern gearbox. So that's something that we don't see in the upper echelons of motorsport these days. Normally sequential gearbox or even paddle shift. So, you know, great, I think, to teach some of these young kids that there's more to driving the car than paddle shifts or a sequential, that the driver should actually have to work and think about how they're shifting up and down.
You raise a great point, because even from a road car perspective, you don't see too many manual cars out there. It took me a long time to learn how to drive a manual.
Do you feel like you have learnt, or are you still learning?
I still can't get it right. 20 years later. Connor Adam in car number 9 is now Cameron Hill takes to the chicane on the backside. That's the old part of the circuit that we used to use prior to 2013. And now he drops himself right towards the back. In fact, that's Bramwell King he pulls up in front of. So not too far down the order.
One of the front runners in the Australian Toyota 86 series. Just really battling to come to grips with how this car behaves with the Hankook tyre on board. Shown some glimpses of it this weekend, but in the rain particularly, he's just pushing the envelope very, very hard and stepping over the mark occasionally, and it's hurting him. That little run through that we saw, I've mentioned it a couple of times in the coverage this weekend, but extra row of tyre barriers put in there, and that's to slow these guys down so that if you do outbrake yourself at turn 5, you can't just slot back in to the same position that you left the circuit. You really got to slow the car up, and there's actually a deterrent to bombing it into turn 5, whereas last year you could bomb it in if you ran too long. There we go. So that extra row on the left-hand side, that short one there, has been added this year, and it just slows all the guys up in every category this weekend if they do have to run down through that link road on the old part of the circuit.
No advantage can be gained from there. As Bramwell King, he set him up from a long way back. Will he pull it up? Only just down there. This is impressive from the rookie. He jumps into the car that Liam Lawson was going to drive. Lawson couldn't secure enough sponsorship for this car. We've seen Liam race over in Australia this year in the Cam's Jayco Australian Formula 4 Championship. Another impressive guy, but this 18 car has really impressed me since practice and qualifying began yesterday.
What impressed me was just how well Bramwell was able to catch that moment on the brakes. Lots of rear locking going on. Oops, slow car off to the side of the road there, but it was a pretty big moment. Anytime the car has that much attitude skating around under brakes, it feels probably like 3 times worse from inside the car. I can guarantee you he would have been all arms and elbows trying to catch that car and slow it up on the entry to turn 5.
It makes it look easy from the outside looking in. He started 12th, and he's up to 6th position now. So the points are coming in now for the Care Vets team. It's around GJ Gardner-Holmes they go on another lap. Looks like it's just stopped raining out there for a moment. Tom Alexander's gap is just a whisker under 2 seconds now to Milligan. Great battle now between Reid Harker, Cameron Hill and Bramwell King. Now this is for 4th, 5th and 6th position, as we have 4 laps to go at the end of this race. Harker, former race winner here, and really having to work for it. I thought going into the weekend this will be the guy they'll chase, but he's really had to work hard for the positions.
One of the things we learned from today's earlier race was that it doesn't matter whether it's for the win or whether it's for the minor positions. These guys here absolutely love duking it out, don't they?
Fantastic. It really shocked me how quick they got into it here. We've had a couple of them come across to Australia this year. Jack Milligan, for example, he was incredible up at Mount Panorama, a track that still daunts the most experienced drivers out there. From the top 10 results, come through to finish another lap. And Tom Alexander just starting to disappear down the road in car number 11. Another one of the Ken Smith mentored drivers. Ken Smith, a legend over in this part of the world. He's racing in the Formula 5000s that we'll see out tomorrow as part of the ITM Auckland Super Sprint. He's starting his 60th consecutive year of racing.
Yeah, Ken's an absolute icon of the sport, not only over here in New Zealand, but all around the world because of some of the guys that he's helped to get to the real top end of motorsport. Huge supporter of Scott Dixon in his early days, and Ken is, dare I say it, he is probably the purest lover of motorsport of any guy I've ever met in my life. Just absolutely loves it, and will very, very little guy, very quietly spoken.
Loves a chat.
Absolutely loves a chat once you get him chatting. So it's great to have him still around. And yeah, guy that just has a wealth of knowledge from within motorsport. Bought my first Formula Ford off Ken Smith, so go a long way back.
Down to the final turn they come again. Lap number 9 is underway. Reid Harker is the quickest car on the circuit. He runs back in 4th position. 1 minute 24.13 at the end of the last lap. So conditions just improving slightly, but are in the latter stages of this race. So we watch Michael Scott in car number 3 chasing the Aussie Dylan Golson in car 98.
Such a great part of the circuit here. That second last and last corner section at Pukekohe requires so much commitment to get through there as fast as you can. A couple of years ago, the circuit guys added some concrete walls to the inside and outside of the circuit there to, you know, make it safer. There'll be people at home going, how do you add concrete walls to make it safer? Well, there were some old school barriers there, and when the cars hit them, they tended to fire them back out into the oncoming traffic. So they put these concrete walls, speaking of tyres and firing them into the oncoming traffic, is a very good example of how that works. But what it's done to that last and final sector of this circuit is requires, as I mentioned, huge amount of commitment. But if you make a mistake, you end up in the concrete, and it is a big hit through there.
No one's ever beaten a concrete wall. Dylan Golson was working the steering wheel before he got to the chicane, and in the end, yep.
Commentating it for us there. We could hear the pain in his voice.
He knew it was coming.
He said, disappointed with that. But this has all happened here. Look at that. He's turned the car in, lost the rear, tried to steer into the incident to keep it going where he wanted, and from that moment on, he is just busy, busy, busy.
He got that curve, the painted curve on the left-hand side, which finished off the T Custom Accessories entry. And drops himself still inside the top 10, but damage down the left-hand side. Lap 11, and safety car free, which is a relief.
These guys are still at it for P4, 5, and 6.
Did I speak too soon, maybe? It's brewing.
The commentator's curse.
Yes. And King on the back of Hill, who's chasing Reed Harker. That's Baldwin ahead, who started from pole position. He's third at the moment, and now he's set the fastest lap of the race. We're down into the 123s now. 1.5 laps to go.
We haven't been able to split these three guys all race, have we? Cam Hill having a little look up the inside there, showing no signs of any remorse from his earlier incident. I thought he'd be a bit gun-shy breaking into turn 5 there, but he's said, no way, I'm going to own it and learn from what happened earlier, but couldn't get the job done. So now he's looking for the outside move on the run into the hairpin.
Still inside the top 5. Of course, these results won't affect the starting grid for tomorrow, with a completely different looking grid once again, as now Cameron Hill goes side by side with Reed Harker. The 5 versus the 4. What a pass. That was cool.
That was really cool, and that was set up on the run and the braking area into the hairpin. I mentioned that he was high. He was able to get the car turned, be nice and straight when he tried to get on the throttle, and that gave him the run. But King's also making himself known there, being ran all the way down to the grass. He was compromised on his turn-in point, which has ran him wide through turn 1. This is still on.
He has no fear in the 18. You can hear those Hankook tyres squealing going down into turn number 1, and he's now captured Cameron Hill.
Cameron Hill looks like he's just missed a gear or had a bad shift, and it's slowed and compromised his run up the main straight, and that's allowed King into this. So these three guys that can't separate each other are still on.
Mirror to mirror, door handle to door handle. And it's not over yet. There's still a genuine passing opportunity here at the Husqvarna hairpin.
Final lap. Can't we have a few more so these guys can carry on?
It's been exciting from the lights out moment of the race. And Hill, could this be enough for Bramwell King to line him up? I don't think so.
King defensive into the hairpin to keep Harker behind him.
Tom Alexander, impressive drive for the 23-year-old who lives just down the road here from Pukekohe. Car number 11 is going to do it by 1.2 seconds in race 2 of the Toyota 86 Racing Championship. Today, another phenomenal race, celebrating this 75th championship race since 2013. And Cameron Hill will hold down for the hardest fought 4th position in recent history.
Oh, that was a great battle. I loved absolutely every minute of that. Those guys were at it for the full race distance, providing us with plenty of entertainment there throughout this 12-lap race. Brilliant job, lads.
Incredible. And Alexander has picked up the win here from Jack Milligan, who ran a lonely race out there in 2nd position. Baldwin in 3rd place. Then we go back to Cameron Hill, Bramwell King, Reed Harker, Jaden Ransley, Ben McDonald, Connor Adam, and Chris Quinn completing the top 10. in a race that was heavily affected by the weather at the start, and a wild moment, which we'll see in a moment in the highlights.